Hello, my name is Richard Fisher, and I'm here to help you navigate through the book of Isaiah so that you will not only understand it, but you will be able to apply and teach it. Today we will be looking at Isaiah 50 through 55, which is a word of comfort in light of the Babylonian captivity. Now, what is unique about this section, and it's so obvious that you have to see it to appreciate what's going on here, and that is what we call the prophetic rhetoric. You know what rhetoric does is it's this. There's three things it does. It engages the mind. It engages the mind. It touches the heart, so that you feel the emotion that's there. And it persuades the will. When you read what the prophets say, and it's written as if it's to be read, because you're moved by how it's put together. You're moved by the way the words are used, by the way they're repeated, by the pictures that are painted. You actually begin to feel that God is ready to do something. And as you sense that God is working, is moving, that something's going to happen, that God has not left us here on our own, that He's actually acting on our behalf, you invite Him to redeem you. And you just wait for Him to say, I want you to be on my team. And you say, I am ready to go. I want to work with you, God, and I want to redeem the world. It's a phenomenal thing to see the rhetoric, to see how it unfolds. Matter of fact, if you recognize it, you will begin to understand how you can engage the mind, touch the heart, and persuade the will of people so that they will step forward and begin to serve God with a willing and yearning heart. We see this take place in chapter 40, where the word comfort appears twice. We said to comfort my people. And it alerts us to the fact that we find ourselves in the frustration and suffering of life. And we yearn for God to act. It's like we forgot God. We really didn't follow Him in our life, and we find ourselves, at the bottom of the barrel. We find ourselves with nowhere to go. And then it dawns on us that there was a word of hope. God promised to send a son. God promised to work salvation. God looked around and no one was out there doing it, so He decides to do it Himself. And He has a plan that's unbelievable. And now He's communicating to us. Remember, Isaiah is the voice of God. And you begin to hear the voice of God. And so here we're addressed right at the beginning. Comfort. And then there's a series of servant psalms which God puts together here. And they're servant songs which gives us an idea of how God is going to redeem. It's not going to be this flashy way. It's going to be the way of the servant. And we have four such songs: 42, chapter 49, chapter 50, and chapter 52, 53. And it talks about God's salvation through His servant. And His servant is the Messiah, the anointed one. We would say Jesus Christ. So we have these servant songs that serve as the directive and foundation in this section, and they guide this along. And in the midst of developing these servant songs, we find all kinds of interesting words. And they start with chapter 41. So if you have your Bible tonight, this is the time to just see what's there. First of all, it calls us to be silent. I'm just going to start right here after this comfort. We have here, be silent. And you keep reading, and you'll find in 42, You'll see it there as it moves through. Now, it's not that these words are just standing here alone. There's all kinds of discussion about the situation they find themselves in, their cry to God, their need, and God as he begins to work in their lives. So in 42, we have the word hear. And then we begin to develop in 44, and this goes all the way through 51. It's this word listen. Now, as you look at that, if you go to 44, you begin to see how this unfolds. And it starts by saying, listen. And then it continues to move. Notice in 46, listen. Then and once again, 46, listen. Turn the next page, 47, listen. 48, listen. Again in 48, listen, listen, listen. Whoa, it's almost like something's taking place here. Listen, 49, listen. He keeps going all the way up through 51. Listen, listen, listen. For so long, Israel had been listening to the voice of the nations. For so long, they had been listening to the cries and whining of people. And it's almost like there was no hope. They heard all of the cry. They heard all of the pain. They heard it. But there was nothing they could do about it. But in the midst of this pain, God is also speaking. He's speaking his voice. He's speaking his word. There are two concepts there that I'd like to draw out. Because what happens is we don't listen for God's voice. And second of all, God has called us to be that voice so that we speak to people in despair, speak to people in pain. They hear enough voices, but we want them to hear the voice of God. And what is taking place in Isaiah is God is speaking, and he's speaking through his servant, and he's speaking to the people, and all of a sudden they're beginning to hear what God is saying. And as they hear these words, Isaiah is challenging them not to just let them bounce around inside their head, but to start paying attention to them, to let it sink down into their heart. And as they hear and as they listen more and more, you will notice that in 51, something changes. At the end of 51, all of a sudden, the words become awake, awake. And then in 52, it's repeated again. Awake, awake. And everything, all of a sudden, there's a difference now between listen and awake. And you begin to understand the rhetoric here because you realize, wait a minute, I'm listening to the voice of God. And also, all of a sudden, when I change from listen, listen to awake, awake, it's like someone is nudging me. They want me to get ready. They want me to get up. They want me to realize that God is about to act. And then at the end of 52, the word changes completely. It is depart, depart. What you see here is that now God is beginning to act, and he says it's time to leave. I've talked to you, you've listened, I've awakened you, so you're ready to go, and now I want you to leave. And what we see in 53 and 54 and even into 55 are new words. They're words of joy. He says, sing, come, seek. And he's asking the people of God who are now departing to rejoice for what he has done and to come to him and to have your needs met and the thirst in your soul satisfied, and then to seek God while he may be found, to follow him. When I read this passage, I get excited. The details fall into place as you see God acting, as you hear his message of hope, and then as he calls you to awaken, to embrace it, and then to leave the world, leave their frustration, and follow God. And when you come out from among that, it's like a burden is lifted off of you. Now you sing for joy, and in the midst of your rejoicing, God says, listen, I want you to taste what you've missed. I want you to taste what it means to have refreshment to a parched soul. I want you to taste what it means to have direction. and know that it's going to have God's stamp on it. I want you to seek me. And that word seek has the same connotation as follow as part of it. I want you to seek and I want you to follow. And at this point, what's happening here is almost like you're saying, I am free. I am free. And then that takes us actually into the next section. But the next section uses two more doublets or couplets here. And they are build, and peace, peace. Once you have taken hold of Jesus Christ and once you've entered into freedom, now your goal is to edify. It is to build. And all of a sudden Israel gets a new vision. They're not here just to imitate the nations. They're here to edify. They're here to tell them about the good news. And that's where peace comes in. Everyone wants peace. Remember Hezekiah? He was satisfied just to have a worldly form of peace in his day. But this is not that. This is a call to embrace the joy of the Lord and to find an inner peace and an outer peace that's reflected by it, that joins all of the hopes and all the promises of God together. This leads to the climax of what took place in the land of Israel as they made their way back from the Babylonian captivity and found that now they could become the voice of God and the light of the world.